Hello and welcome. My name is Vanessa Ortali. I am the founder of the Ladies Community and Heart and Mind Talks. Welcome to our summit, The One, where we are focusing on one with self, one with others, and one with purpose. And so today I am bringing to you Jackie Serviss. So perfect for our theme being of service to self and others. And she is a business coach and consultant. And today she's going to share with you her journey and how she got to where she is today, what alignment means, how she found it, and the power of pause and how to bring more presence and stillness into your life so that you can connect with purpose, with yourself, and with others. So welcome, Jackie. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. What an honor. And I'm so excited to speak to all the listeners that are tuned in and add a ton of value today.
Yeah, this is going to be so fun. So I want to ask you a question of when you hear the theme, one with self, one with purpose, one with others, what does that mean to you?
Two things come up for me really quickly. One is living in alignment. And what I mean by that is, how do we find alignment with ourselves, right? We often hear this word and it's kind of out there right now and people are talking about alignment. But what does that feel like in our body? And how do we not just physically feel it, right? Because we can be physically healthy, but how do we emotionally feel that, spiritually feel that, and then have that community that brings through that alignment as well? And a word that, again, I hear often right now, but it really came through loudly when you asked that question was, how do we stand in our truth? And how do we find our own version of truth and then live by that as like a pillar or a filter on all the choices and decisions we're making in life to allow us to stay in alignment?
That's great. I want to dive right into that.
Because, like there's so much more.
Right? Yeah. So many people, and myself included, I really resonate with the word alignment. But in speaking about it, let's talk about, what does alignment mean to you? What does it mean to others? And how can they actually find that?
Yeah, I love that. So I will tell a story through my personal lens because it gives context. Yeah. And I think that's always helpful for a listener. And what I always ask people is like, find yourself somewhere in this story and put yourself in this story in whatever way it can serve you. But I know what alignment feels like because I spent 27 years of my life living out of alignment. And so it's been this really beautiful unfolding and process and journey. And I say beautiful, like in quotations, because there was definitely some low and dark moments when we find alignment.
Don't you find though, it's not this thing that you just find and you keep, like when we talk about alignment, I want you to hear alignment for me is an ongoing life journey. It's every day. What tools do I need and how do I put that into practice so that I find alignment in each moment once you found it? So like I was the same as you, Jackie. I spent so many years in action and putting my worth into my accomplishments and money and what I was going to do to be successful, that I was just like in here. I can just feel it in my chest, right? And once you feel alignment, you know what it feels like. And then staying in that is so critical to staying true to your truth and your service. So share with us your story of how you found alignment and what that meant to you.
Yeah. And you and I have such a similar story and so many parallels that are, just our stories are so parallel. I'll just put it that way. So my truth is that I lived 27 years of my life fixated on high performance. And when I use the term high performance, it was often to gain validation from others because I really placed my worth outside of myself, which again kept me out of alignment. So find yourself in the story. And so I grew up as a swimmer. I was a high performance athlete. And I took that context of what really drove me as an athlete, and I literally just flipped it into a new chapter in my life, which was corporate America. So I worked for a Fortune 50 organization, big brand name, and very quickly climbed that corporate ladder. And again, put my worth in the recognition that I was getting from others. oh my goodness, you're a this title, you're a that title, you got the promotion, you're making the money, you have the house, you have the car, all of those external materialistic things where I thought happiness and alignment was going to be found really wasn't. And for me, I was a little bit stubborn. I don't know about you, but like, I think there was a lot of cues that the universe was giving me, like, wake up, girl, you're a little bit out of alignment. But I didn't see them. And so what ended up happening as a part of my story, which became the catalyst for growth and to find alignment, was when I was 27, I was diagnosed with a brain tumor. And that moment is where I started to realize, and it didn't happen overnight, but I started to realize the way in which I had been living was no longer going to be of service to me moving forward.
Can you put us to that moment? Because before realizing that you were out of alignment, were you into self-development? Did you read self-help books, podcasts? And I ask this because I did. I was reading everything. I was listening. I thought I knew, but knowing and then what's actually going on in your mind and in your body is completely different. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, oh, but I'm listening to this podcast, this interview, and I do all of this, I want to challenge you. Do you really? Because it takes work and commitment and effort, and just reading a self-help book front to back is not going to do anything for you. Like, you have to do the questions and the work and dive deep. So tell me a little bit more about where you were at, and then you get this very shocking news and what that did to you.
You know what? I think when we classify ourselves, or we are classified as, is probably a better term, a high performer. I always had a growth mindset. I was always like looking for the next thing, and always looking for the next book or the podcast or the experience or the conference, or even surrounding myself with people who were better than me at things. I always believed in this like human connection, but that like human performance drives human performance. So go surround yourself with the right tribe, crew, whatever you want to call it, community, to really up-level yourself. I was doing that before the quotes are coming out. You know, that we're talking a decade ago now. This is a while ago. You know, what was true for me then, and what I've really seen this switch, and it goes back to what you were just talking about. I was reading all the books and I had the knowledge, right? But it's different to like surround yourself in that energy and actually integrate it into your body, into your energy. It's a way of living. It's a way in how I show up. There's different habits that I follow now that I wasn't following then, right? There's non-negotiables and things around boundaries that I really had to learn, because it's one thing to read a book and like, hello, I'd like have self-help books all over the place. It's just who I am.
Showing the book A Return to Love, if you are listening to this. It's one of my favorites.
I read it every year for 7 years because I keep learning from this.
I love it.
But it's different to be in the energy of it and to actually integrate it into your being, like who you are. And that's when you say like, you got to do the work. You got to dive in. You got to release the stuck energy in your body, in your mind, in the actual energy of who you are. I'm a big believer in this balance of, personally, I think entrepreneurship is an energy game. As strategic as I am, as much as I step into that space and I can scale a business like nobody else.
Scale a business like nobody's business.
I'm just rhyming now. I'm just going to start a rap. The truth is, and what I've realized is, this is an energy game. And when we break everything down, it really is energy. Money's energy. Relationships are energy. You know, relationship with self is energy. And so that's, to me, when you talk about like those moments of like reading or actually integrating the work, that's very different in the experience of how you actually have to move through that work.
Okay, so if someone's listening, how can they know if they're in alignment or they're not?
I don't know sometimes you don't know what you don't know. Okay, I'm going to be real. Because I'm with you. Like, did I think 10 years ago I was in alignment? Probably.
I did too.
I'm being honest. Like, I probably did. For me, that's where like I had to dive into the work on a deeper level and get real with myself. So that's for me when I started to hire spiritual coaches and energy coaches and business coaches and surround myself with a different community of people. And I spent a lot of time on a yoga mat. I spent a lot of time. I also, like, one of my favorite things to do, and I've done for 7 years and I do it every day, like pen to paper.
Yeah.
Pen to paper. Get these crazy thoughts onto paper so I can actually see what's going on. You know, and these were these small, like they're hacks that I now know and that have helped me stay in alignment. But you talked about it as well. It's a journey. And I always talk about alignment like as like a dial, right? And a lot of us are like just off, like we're so close. And so we may feel like we're in alignment. And then there's a moment where like we just shift something like so slightly and all of a sudden things flow and they happen with ease. And it's, we don't know what we don't know. And when we tap into an energy at that source, now I've felt it. It's a lived, felt experience. And so I can also feel when I'm out of it. I'm like, ooh, I want to get back there. Yeah. So that's always my constant journey of self as well.
For me, it was a coach too. But what brought me to the coach was something super simple. Do you remember that movie? Oh my goodness, and I'm not going to remember the title. It's a Pixar or Disney movie when they have all the different emotions in their mind with red balls, blue balls, green.
I know what you're talking about, but I can't think about it.
Inside Out is the movie, okay? And when I watched this animated movie, the blue balls were sad balls. And I looked at this movie and went, oh shit. Most of the balls and memories and thoughts going through my mind, I'm actually kind of sad. So to me, my emotions were the cue to me that there was something I wasn't quite getting. And that's when I hired a law of attraction and energy coach, because for me, I thought, well, I must be missing something. And that just really shifted me into, you know, but you're right. I didn't know what I didn't know. I remember sitting at a conference and thinking, man, like none of this is new to me. I know everything figuratively, you know, like I think I know what I need to do, but something wasn't clicking. So if something's not clicking for you, you have to do something different to get something you don't have. And, or if you want to feel a different emotion. And that's why I think both of us just resonated with different practices and getting a coach to point out our blind spots. And maybe that's why we're also both coaches, because we love pointing out other people's blind spots, right? Yeah. And so how do you give some additional tools on how today, you listening and watching this, how can someone find a little bit of alignment today and or start that journey to find what alignment means to them?
Yeah. And it's such a self exploration and really opening doors. You know, I'll just take you back for 1 second, because I think a lot of times, you know, speaking in the tone of a return to love, but a lot of the times we're making choices and decisions in life out of a place of fear. And I challenge us to start to think about, what are those things that we're making from a place of fear? That can be fear of loss, fear of money, fear of relationships, fear of, you know, imposter syndrome, self-doubt. There's so many different versions of how fear can show up for us, and it's different for all of us. But maybe I always say, we have to get real with ourselves. Like, we have to get real with ourselves. And how can you, sometimes for me, I have to actually pull myself out of my environment to get real with myself. Like that's just a simple thing that we can do, where it's like, okay, I'm in the same habitual routine every day, going to the same coffee shop, going to the same place that I work, driving the same way to work. All of those things are habit. How can you give yourself permission to pull yourself out of that energy for half a day, 2 hours, 1 hour, whatever you can find, and explore something new or get into a different energy that maybe sparks some new thinking and new thought. One of the things that changed my life more than anything else was leaning in and saying yes. And leaning in and saying yes to shit that terrified me. So where are those moments, or where are those things that have opportunities that have presented themselves where you've been like, no, not for me. Oh, that's too much money right now, or whatever the other story is that you're telling yourself. I really encourage you to look at it through the lens of, is this coming from a place of fear or is this coming from a place of love?
Yeah.
You know, that's very, that's theory in a way. But if we can pull ourselves out and put ourselves into a new environment, and it can be as simple as, I will tell you this, like time and time again has been my saving grace in so many ways.
She's pointing to her journal.
This is a journal.
Yeah.
Like, hello, blank paper and pen. Get your thoughts out and onto paper. There's a lot of science out there now. I'll go into that tangent in a minute, but there's a lot of science out there now that will actually tell you that by allowing yourself to like free write about what's going on emotionally in your body, that it actually creates a healing mechanism for you to see kind of all the things that you're writing and find these trends that keep showing up in your life so that you may be able to address them. You know, and if there are trends, that's maybe where you need to reach out to a friend that's in that space. That's maybe where you need to get a coach and say like, listen, my money mindset is not good because it keeps coming up for me on my own. And I've done the work as much as I can, the podcast, the books, all of the things on my own. Now, how do I get support in a different way to really break through this old limiting belief pattern that's holding me back?
Yeah. And so often we're stuck in those patterns that we don't realize. So I love how you're tying journaling into that so that people can start to see what are the things that I'm talking about often and what are the links here. Can you link this to a topic that I know you love so much, is this power of pause?
Yeah. Listen, I didn't know what pausing was. Let's just be real for a second. I was like, head down, how fast can I go? And like off to the races. You know, you talk to people that knew me in my past life, version 1.0, and they would say like, she was always running somewhere. It was always on the go. And we see it so much. It's a conditioned habit in our societies that we're just always racing. We're always going somewhere. We're always late. You know, if you don't believe me, literally go to 10 people and take track of how many of them say, when you ask the question, how are you doing today? They say, great, I'm so busy. I'm so busy. There's this whole like culture that we've become fixated on, this like glorification of busy.
Even in emails, it's so easy to say, sorry for the delay.
Yes.
It's okay to take a couple days to respond to an email.
Right? Yes. I love that. It's so true. But the concept of the power and the pause. So obviously for me, what was the catalyst for me to start doing some of the work was I literally had a brain tumor. I had disease and I manifested disease in my body. And when you break that word down, you know, it really is dis-ease. Like I was uncomfortable with myself. And it led me down this journey of starting to say yes to things I never would have said yes to before. Experiences, events with friends. I walked into an RMT because at the time, the only thing I knew how to do from a like self-love perspective was go get a massage. That was my concept of self-love at the time. And the RMT was like, I don't think you're here for massage. I'm also a Reiki master. Would you be open to receiving some different types of energy today? And I was like, sure, why not? I was open to the experiences, whereas before I would be like, no, I'm here for massage. Like, that's what we're doing. You know, I would try to control it. And that was this like dance for me, is when this moment happened, I started to realize how fragile life is. And I started to realize that I had the opportunity to create a life that I never thought possible.
Can we go a little bit more into this healing journey for you? Because I know so many people are experiencing physical and emotional pain. What was that like for you to actually heal from your brain tumor?
Yeah, thanks for asking that question. You know, to say that it was rainbows and unicorns is a complete lie. And I would be doing a disservice to everyone watching to say that that was truth, because it was dark and it was ugly and it was a mirror back to everything that I had identified with. Like I really put a lot of value in my identification of like what I did, not who I was. And it really put a flashlight on the areas of my life that I had to start to focus on. And again, I go back and I just speak my truth. And my truth was that moment in time became this catalyst to start saying yes to things I never would have said yes to before. So when I talk about energy, when I talk about spirituality or energy, and those words can mean very different things to very different people, it opened my mind to healing with more Eastern style philosophies. How did I merge this ancient Eastern wisdom and this Western philosophy of medicine together to find what made sense for me and not have to be pigeonholed in one or the other? And for whatever reason, for me, what kept coming up is like my body was not responding well to the medication that the Western system was putting me on, which rightfully so. Sometimes we need medication in our body, and sometimes our body responds great to that. And I'm not here to judge in any way, shape, or form. It's just my truth was my body wasn't responding to it. I was sick. I was like, I would take this radiation style medication. And clearly there's still energy that needs to come up around this radiation style medication. And I would be sick for 2 days and I would have to take it every week. So then it's the whole emotional rat race of having to be on that medication. And at the same time, I was getting introduced to new ways of thinking, new ways of healing, and different spiritual coaches, spiritual teachers, different experiences I immersed myself in with other people who had manifested disease and were healing themselves. I got introduced to Dr. Joe Dispenza, who 7 or 8 years ago, 7 or 8 years ago, was not as big as he is today. So I love seeing the journey he's been on. But specifically, Dr. Joe helped me start to connect the neuroscience and epigenetics behind healing. And for me, that gave me a lot of clarity, because I think the mysticism was pulling me in one direction. But what Dr. Joe does, as you know, is he demystifies that world and he provides a little bit of science to what's actually happening in our body. And my tumor was in my pituitary gland, which, if there's any spiritual people in this world, like, it's literally my third eye. Like, I was cut off to any source of like intuitive calls or pings. And through working with yoga and meditation and breath work and people like Dr. Joe, all of a sudden it was like this third eye opened for the first time in my life. And as it opened and as I became more real with myself and I got more in touch with myself, as I moved my body into alignment, which again is that it's a feeling more than anything for me, my MRI results started to show that the tumor was shrinking. And again, and again, and again. And then one day it wasn't there anymore. And that was this realization. I know there's a documentary out right now called Heal on Netflix, which is a beautiful documentary just showing that these experiences do happen in people's lives. I will be real with you. I've had remissions where it's come back. I'm a mom of twins. That kind of shook my hormones. All things aside, like, there's been moments where traces of it has come back. But I will tell you, the moments it comes back, I have to look in the mirror and ask myself, am I living in alignment?
Wow. Yeah, I resonated so much with your story too, because for those of you that know me, I lost my mom to breast cancer. And I got into all of these different modalities of healing through my mother. So my mother ended up passing away when I was 18, but she had started her healing journey in my early teens. So I had seen all of these different modalities, but she too went to both Western and Eastern medicine to heal. Mm-hmm. And obviously it's her journey, but there's so much power in this, in also understanding your body. Mm-hmm. What I'm hearing is that it was a journey to understand your body. It wasn't always comfortable because you're trying different things and you're changing patterns, but nobody can tell you what's right for you. Only you know. And being open to understanding and trying different things seems like it really worked for you and is something you continue to turn to.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for that. And that's why I'm a big believer of, my story is not everyone's story. It's just my story, but it's also, if it can provide one little piece of nugget to somebody else and give them permission to start to do some of their checking in on themselves, like that's where I come from, a place of service. And yes, it is funny that that's my last name. And I think that there's no coincidences in life, but that's really this calling or mission for me, is to have people wake up to what the possibility of really living from a place of alignment can feel like. I know you've tasted it, and like when you have it, it's like, oh, that's a different way of living.
It almost becomes an addiction that when you don't have it, I went through a period, and still times when I'm out of alignment, it's truly loving and being patient and coming into that stillness when I'm not in alignment, and honoring those moments because it's part of the journey and just enjoying the journey. How does this tie to that element of truth and you believing and honoring, you finding your truth and helping others to find theirs?
I struggled for the last, I will tell you, since when I had the brain tumor and then I did this healing journey, it wasn't until last May that I came out and started publicly talking about the story. And I know it was from a place of fear. And I had this fearful thought that people would define me as, oh, the girl with brain tumor, or they would identify me as my health beyond who I am. And this is a great example. I've read all the Brené Brown books. I've read all the vulnerability, creates connection from a human level. I wasn't living it. So last year, it was clear to me that, people saw me as a corporate exec, and then they saw me as a coach, and they were like, that's cool. She left corporate and now she's a coach, but they didn't know my why. They didn't know the deep rootedness that was my truth. And it felt really surface level. And I don't know if you've ever experienced that with people before, but it just felt like people were creating their own stories because I wasn't telling them the story. And so all of a sudden I realized, wow, in order for me to integrate this fully, I actually need to speak it out loud, because it could be one person that's out there that needs to hear it. It's not always for the masses, but if there's one person that this inspires to start their journey, then that feels like I've come from a place of service. And so I spoke it into reality. I had a video come out about it, and instantly, it took a little while for me to actually acknowledge and integrate it. But energetically, all of a sudden, there were so many other people that started coming forward to say, I had no idea that was your story. Here's mine. This is what I've been through, and I found myself in your story. And all of a sudden, this human connection at such a raw level was true. And it was the first time I realized, I just put Brené Brown into practice.
Yeah.
And the whole concept of actually pulling vulnerability and being real and courageous with a story that I was kind of hiding from.
I want to highlight something you said, though, because you knew you were coming. I can hear that you're coming from service, because you said, if I can help one person. And I think so often when we're trying to build a business and trying to make impact, we're thinking about all the people we can help. And then it becomes so overwhelming and then we make it about us. Yeah. And so if we can step back and just think, how can you help one person with your story? It is your story. Only you have lived it. Your story makes you who you are and your gifts, and you sharing that, if you can help one person, it's worth it.
Yeah. And it really led to some beautiful relationships, some unexpected relationships that just showed up in my life. And at the time that I was doing the video and thinking about how I was going to tell people about this experience, it was coming I think there's also something to say. It's this was that last piece for me to fully let go of this story of fear-based energy around this health story. Is okay, you've done all the healing behind closed doors, but what if you open the doors up and showed people what that looked like? Is there somebody out there that could find the value in it? But selfishly, it was also just for me to fully release it and heal and to step into alignment. So if you're sitting there and you're thinking I'm not even thinking about somebody else right now because I'm just so caught up in my own stuff, That's okay. Move through your experience, move through your journey. And in turn, I guarantee it, once you find the nugget or the things that really light you up and create passion and fulfillment in your life, you're going to want to share that and extend that forward with others. It is such a human like desire and need to really feel into fulfillment.
And there's so many ways to do that now. I think that is actually the advantage to social media. I was so reluctant for so long, and it would bring up, icky feelings in me. But if we look at it as a place to just share what you're going through and what you felt, and you sharing your story and helping somebody else, it takes away some of that feeling too of I'm just doing this to promote myself and gain followers. It's just something and an avenue that you can share. Sharing is so easy. What are you currently healing and or processing and working through in this moment?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. I will tell you today, I feel more in alignment than I've ever felt. And that's a beautiful thing. And so I'm not going to search for something that isn't there right now. What I had to heal last year, which was major for me. And like last year, like trust me, it went into January. So it wasn't just 2019, was the old habits of people pleasing, the old habits of getting caught up in what everyone else is doing and not staying in alignment with self. And it happens quickly. Like it can literally happen from you seeing something on Instagram. You're like, oh, I could do that too. Oh, that looks like fun. But where is that coming from? And I had to get really intentional around my mission and what I'm here to do and how I'm here to serve in this world. And that's what's interesting and how I stay in alignment for self now. And I hope this can help somebody is really asking yourself the question, like, why do I do what I do? And at the highest level, like not to get followers on Instagram, not to make $1 million. I don't want to hear that bullshit. Like go high, get into the macro level thinking. And mine is back to that place of like waking people up. It's to rise global consciousness. I believe that a lot of us are asleep at the wheel. And so if that's true, if that's the mission, then how do I filter all of these bright, shiny objects or ideas that my head ultimately goes to through that mission and ensure it is in alignment? Or quite frankly, quite quickly, it shows me when things are not in alignment. And it's such a simple, tactical thing to do. But just by having that mission, I've started to go back to it as my anchor. And things like, when you get caught up in like maybe a relationship thing that's not working or a business thing that's not working, I always ask like, is this in line with aligned or in line with my mission? And how is this enabling that?
Yeah. And to add to the mission part, another element, have you read Seat of the Soul by Gary Zukov? So right, it's great. And he talks about it as intention.
Yes.
And what is your intention behind everything that you're doing? And what impact are you looking to have on others in that? And so I love the word intention, because sometimes for me, mission is too business. My thing that I
fall back to corporate quick.
Yeah. And I have this really gung-ho, super business side and masculine side to me that just rears up very often, especially if she's passionate about her mission. Whoa, she just wants to go. And she's like, what do I have to do today to be successful? Go, 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 go. So I still feel that coming up in me, depending on what's happening. And even now in my meditation just this morning, because I'm working on so many fun things that I felt myself getting in that pattern, that old pattern of action. And so stepping back and taking it one step at a time and realizing that I was still linking my self-worth to my actions and my activities. And so in my meditation this morning, it was all about, I don't have to do anything. If you are listening to this, you are so perfect where you are. You do not have to do anything. You don't have to accomplish anything to be worth more. And this Western society that we live in of what do you need to do and how are you going to get there faster, better? And sometimes when I'm business coaching with a client, it's how do you balance this business and then this alignment concept so that you're still connected to your intention and in alignment and still being effective in business, right? It becomes this balancing act, and it's just really cool to continue to go about that journey so that we can also teach others.
I love that.
Yeah.
You said something really powerful there too. And I think there's this rise right now of this like feminine energy, right? And I was like, hello, 1.0 version of self was like 110% masculine. I didn't understand feminine and the softer side. Now, the interesting thing is, as I've done more exploration of my own feminine side, when we say feminine, I don't always think it means soft, because I actually think she can be fierce and she can be so many different attributes. But it is this like part of alignment for me was recognizing that there was two sides, right? The yin and yang energy, if you come from that energetic space, but it's like there are two sides. There's also light and there's like dark night of the soul. And there's seasons of that as entrepreneurs. And how do we give ourselves permission to like lean into the cyclical seasonality of life and business? And through that, yes, find what works for us and what in that dial, like find what really locks us into alignment. Like you and I probably have a million tools that we could always pull from in any one situation to lock us in. But what really works for you, Vanessa, is going to be different than what works for me.
And day by day.
Right?
Sometimes what works for you today will not work tomorrow. Yeah.
That's it. And that's why I always say it's this dance, but I go back to that concept of the power of the pause. And I know you know this from Dr. Joe as well, but to share it, this is the visual that I sometimes get is for me, that energy of slowing down and pausing lets me explore that more feminine, flowy energy than the rigid, this is exactly what my scheduled control-based day needs to look like. Okay. And the pause for me often, again, it can come from just pulling myself out of a situation. It can come from like locking down my laptop and putting earphones in. It can come through meditation, yoga. It can come through a walk in nature. Like it shows up differently. There's meditative moments always throughout the days. And so yes, where I'm an advocate because it works for me of sitting down and actually meditating. Some people I say, just start by going and walking in nature. Just start by like listening to music that just allows your brain to kind of flow with the music. There's so many meditative moments. But how I picture my brain sometimes and why I think that there's this power in the pause is like this back part of your brain. Just envision this for a second. Think about like dumping a jar of marbles in there and then all day somebody's just there shaking the marbles. So like the neurons are firing and wiring all over the place, and quite frankly, it feels like a hot mess some days. I'm sure you've been there. Like, where did that thought come from? And oh, I need to do this and I need to do that. And all of these thoughts are bouncing all over the place. And I literally see it like a jar of marbles shaking in my head. What happens when we pause through breath, through movement, through however that speaks to you? We actually slow those marbles down and pull them into this prefrontal cortex. And when they land there, that's the energy of your third eye. That's innovation and intuition and creativity. That's flow. So those moments where you're in flow and it's been 3 hours and you haven't even realized the time's gone by because you're just in creative flow or you're in a beautiful conversation like this. Those are moments where I physically see in my third eye or my mind's eye, the marbles have landed here. And from that place, I can tap into not just what's within me, but kind of a power source greater than self and start to really lean into some of that deeper work.
You can hear, even in Jackie's voice, you just describing that analogy even changed your voice. And so thinking things through, and that just shows us and links back to Joe, the power of thought and what it does to our body. And I know for me, oftentimes digital detoxes and stepping away from technology really helps me to step into pause and stillness and reflection and knowing what my next best step is and coming back into that inner truth through stillness. I know you also have a guide to help people through a digital detox. Where can they find that?
Yeah, so a couple ways. You can find me at serviss.com, and there's a prompt right there that you can download it. Or it's also just linked to my Instagram, which is where I hang out. And Instagram is at Jackie Serviss as well.
Two S's.
Two S's. It's confusing.
Yeah.
SERVISS. But it's linked there as well. And that's really where it came from, Vanessa. Like, I realized that even if I did 24 hours of like physically turning my phone off, what was that experience like? And for those that are already getting anxious just thinking about it, the guide walks you through step by step things like, if somebody needs to get you in an emergency, who do they contact? Like really basic logistical things. I realized how dependent I am of my phone. And B, I realized how freeing it can feel to turn it off.
Yeah, and that's what alignment is, and why we've talked about it for the last 40 minutes is the freedom that you feel when you're in alignment, that flow, that freedom, that ease, peace. And that's what we wish for everybody, to raise that consciousness. Like you said, of your why is raising consciousness so that we can step into the truth of who we are. So yeah, is there anything you wanted to leave with the viewer?
I just think I go back to like one of my favorite quotes, and it just so happens to be by Marianne again. But it's that whole idea, like when we speak our truth, we give permissions to speak that as well. And so don't underestimate, by you doing the work, the ripple effect of that is truly going to touch and impact more people than you can imagine. And so I'm always a proponent of look inward first.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for spending this time to share your story and for having the courage to step into that discomfort and share your story, knowing that it would help others. And I know people listening right now can take something away from that and find themselves in your story. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you for having me. It's been beautiful, and I look forward to staying connected to the community as well.
Awesome. So go check her out, Jackie Serviss with 2 S's, and feel free to reach out and get her digital detox. Thanks for listening. We will chat with you soon. Bye for now.